patients, and the patients were not symptomatic. When you have a disease characterized by pain, it's a very different matter. Okay, so a second point that isn't necessarily talked about very much are inclusion and exclusion criteria. I will say unequivocally, I've participated in 35 trials. I've never had one where more than 20% of the people with the diagnosis could actually participate. And one of the issues in the lupus nephritis trial was these were not patients with fulminant disease at all. This became apparent. This is the first biological trial, ATTRACT, with the familiar 60-40, 20% ACR 20, 50, and 70 that you all have seen in many other trials. Please note, by the way, that 10 milligrams is always better in 6 of 6 comparisons than 3 milligrams, but they weren't statistically different, so the FDA only initially approved 3 milligrams per kilogram every 8 weeks, but 70% of patients get infliximab escalated. The point I want to make here is that we performed very poorly. In fact, this was the last clinical trial we did because our patients were doing too well, and I wanted to analyze that, so I had all the patients I saw in 2000, and in essence found that only a third met the criteria of 6 tender and swollen joints, only a third of those the morning stiffness, ESR, and CRP, and only a third of those methotrexate dose greater than 12.5. So 5% of our patients were eligible on these criteria alone. That doesn't mention malignancies, diabetes, and other things. This became very apparent about selection in my own trial.